You're tuned into the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, brought to you by XenoPucks. Here are your hosts, Andy and Brian Matusi.
Welcome back to the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, presented as always by XenoPucks. Brian and Andy here with you on this fine Monday evening after Super Bowl 50, whatever that was yesterday. This is a football show, so we should mention that the Super Bowl is yesterday. No, in all seriousness, though, we've made it to the Four Nations Faceoff break, which, of course, takes place of the All-Star break this year, much to the delight of pretty much everybody that watches this sport, I think, that's over the age of 4. Now, we finally made it here, and we found out yesterday that, of course, Quinn Hughes will now not be playing for Team USA due to the injury he's dealing with. Obviously, for him, the most important thing, I mean, as much as he wants to play in this tournament, the most important thing for him and the Canucks is his health moving forward as they continue after the break to push towards the postseason. So, unfortunately for Americans, we will be without one of our best defenders, arguably the best defender on our roster even, but such is life. That's just going to be the way it is for the USA. And yeah, so we have that. We'll talk a little bit more about, and a few other things we're going to get to on the show. Andrew, how you doing?
Not bad, man. I'm looking forward to some Four Nations hockey. I've really been looking forward to this since they announced it, and I'm really excited that we don't have to endure an All-Star break. So very excited for it. So, but we got some shit to talk about.
All I'm saying is, with this being an NHL-sanctioned kind of event, I still can't believe there's no Russia and no Czechia, but I digress.
Oh, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So,
all right, well, we'll open the show with this. We didn't talk about it last time because I was waiting to see what the suspension was, but the Ryan Hartman hit on Tim Stützle, reckless play, stupid play, unnecessary play, anything you can call it is probably going to be accurate. It results in a 10-game suspension for Ryan Hartman. Earned every bit of that. Repeat offender. Again, it was a dumb play. It was a very dangerous play. He's very lucky Tim Stützle is okay. And honestly, after watching that replay of it, it's like he just gets right up off the ice and is like, what the fuck was that? Like, if that was me, I'd have been down for the count. I'm glad he didn't get like knocked unconscious or anything like that. I'm glad he's okay. But for Hartman, this shit's getting irritating, and it's got to stop. And as a fan of Minnesota, and I think most Minnesota fans are pretty much on the same page with this, that we're tired of this guy's shit. I mean, I know he's got issues, and sometimes in the past when he's been riding the edge like that, it's kind of like, all right, it's a little funny, it's a little fun to watch. But when you go out there and make a very dangerous play like that in a game where you're already getting your ass kicked, you're just asking for trouble. And then he appeals the suspension, which is a mess. But I speak for most Wild fans when I say we're quite frankly just tired of this shit. And now I wonder, does the organization start to look at options as far as, trading him away from the team?
Well, I mean, there's nothing funny about intentionally trying to hurt somebody.
No, I was talking about his old antics, like when he was flipping guys off on the other team, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that stuff, obviously. But going out of your way to hurt somebody, especially because you're getting your ass kicked in the game, is just that's so unprofessional. I mean, that's unprofessional at every level. It's just poor sportsmanship all around.
Dangerous, man. You could kill somebody doing that. Not to be dramatic, but
well, I mean, not even. Obviously, yes, but it makes your whole team look bad too. And I just think that's a bad look for the Wild. But I think, like you mentioned, where do they go from here? What steps do they take to address this? Obviously, the league handles it, but what is the team going to do to address this? That's where I'm very curious to see what happens with him moving forward.
Well, I keep a close ear to the ground, obviously, with the Wild, and my eyes will be glued to my phone screen anytime Michael Russo opens his mouth. Michael Russo of The Athletic, big reporter for the Wild, and one of the most well-renowned reporters in the league, quite frankly. But he talked briefly on his podcast that he does with Anthony LaPanta called Worst Seats in the House. And it kind of sounds like maybe that might be the next direction, or the next step for them is to look at how they can move him out of this team, because this is not his first time being suspended, not his first time being fined. I know in this scenario he's going to lose about $500,000 in salary with the games he's missing, which is, I assume, why he's appealing the suspension.
Right.
But now it's like, okay, where do we go from here? Because now, in the meantime, Vinny Hinostroza has come in after the Wild picked him up off the waiver wire. He comes in, gets an assist his first game with the team against the Hurricanes, in a game that the Wild really just squeaked out a win. And then on Saturday night against the New York Islanders, he didn't score, but he had a lot of great chances. He looked really good as he's skating really well. And he's slotting in right in Hartman's spot in the lineup, and he looks like he fits perfectly with this team. The 2 games he's played with the Wild have looked better than every other game Ryan Hartman has played this season. So I don't know where the Wild go from here, but I think the answer is pretty obvious, and maybe that's not what some people want to hear. Ryan Hartman does have a lot of really, diehard fans on this, out of this fan base, but I'm not one of them. And quite frankly, if he's going to be doing stupid shit or if he continues to do dumb shit like this, I don't see why anybody should cheer for him. But after this, I'm almost dejected even looking at the guy, given everything they're going with. They've dealt with the injuries to Kaprizov. They wanted to accrue cap space to make a move at the deadline to add a piece before the playoffs. And now with Hartman being suspended, you don't get any cap relief. And so now they're not able to accrue more cap space because you have to bring in guys, and they're right up against the ceiling now. And so they're in a really tough spot now. And Ryan Hartman is the number one reason that they are salary cap wise. They are really right up against it at this exact moment because of him. And yeah, I don't know. I'm so lost in my thoughts with all of this because it's such a mess. Again, the hit itself was disgusting. Ryan Hartman's history isn't great. Where the Wild are right now, as far as missing Kaprizov and really trying to stay alive as they continue to hold on to one of these top 3 spots in the Central. There's just so many things going on with this team. And the last thing we needed right before a big break in the season 2 was a guy going out, making a reckless play in a game. They lost 6-0, by the way, and gave up 52 shots, which was unacceptable. But the last thing they need is a guy going out, causing a serious injury and getting suspended 10 games. It's just not what this team needs. It's not what any team needs, but this one specifically.
Well, I was going to say a team that's trying to really hold the name they've made for themselves this season, too. It's just a really bad look all around. My thing is, if they put him on the trading block, what do you hope to get in return for him? Because this is probably a bad comparison to make on my part, but it's not like, it's not like you're putting Brad Marchand on the trading block where, yeah, he's a dirty player, but he's also an elite player. Like, I don't know what you're expecting to come from this if you're the Minnesota Wild. That's my thing. I mean, is trading the route to go for them?
Well, it's the only option they have. I mean, he's under contract with the team for a couple more years. I think he's got 2 years left. And I'm going to pull up his contract on Puckpedia, but look, the last couple seasons haven't been great for him. He's got 17 points this year. He's a -8. He's played 48 games. 60 penalty minutes, and it hasn't. I don't even think it was a full calendar year since his last suspension, actually. And so trading him is the only option. I don't know if he's got a no move clause or not. Like I said, I'm trying to bring this up on Puckpedia as we do this. I kind of came unprepared, but hang on. It's coming up right now. Okay, so he's making $4 million against the cap that expires in 2027. So that not the end of next season, but the following season. So he's got 2 years left after this one. Yeah. Okay. So that was right. So he doesn't make a ton of money, which is the upside to this. Is the contract by itself is not hard to move. The salary cap's going way up. Pretty much everybody in the league will have room for him. And I'm not saying that they are going to trade him, but it just seems to make the most sense. See, right now he's not producing. Now he's suspended. He cost his team the opportunity to build cap space towards the deadline and make a trade to add another big piece. So, as much as people have talked about Brock Nelson coming home into Minnesota and playing here, well, if it's going to have to be this summer because now they can't go after him at the deadline. And honestly, the Islanders are playing so good, they might not even want to trade him now. But he put his team in a really bad spot. And so I'm trying to see if he has a no move clause. I don't see anything on here that says that he does. So I'm going to go ahead and say he doesn't. Let's see. Yeah. UFA at age 32. Yeah. I don't see anything on here about it being a no move clause. He's got a modified no trade clause. So they could theoretically put him on waivers. But obviously then you run the risk of losing him for absolutely nothing. So modified no trade clause. So obviously there are some teams he can go to. Bill Guerin's a really good GM in my eyes. I assume he'll find a way to, piece this puzzle together, but I don't think Ryan Hartman will be on the Wild next season. I just don't. I think he'll play out the rest of the season here, but quite frankly, and especially if Vinny Hinostroza continues to play well in Hartman's absence, I think Ryan Hartman's going to have himself or find himself watching these games from the suite upstairs at every game.
Which is fine by me. I mean, I love to watch Vinny Hinostroza stay in the spot he's in. I mean, you and I were talking about it yesterday. Not that long ago, we were literally just watching him in Milwaukee. Well, I watched him in Milwaukee, but he was on Milwaukee when we were seeing him last.
I think he was leading the AHL in scoring until he got called up.
He was. That's correct. So, I mean, one spot well earned in the NHL, no doubt. But it's just wild to see how quickly someone can progress like that in a matter of weeks. So it's really cool. I hope he stays where he is. The guy's earned his time for sure. So I think this is a good fit for both him and Minnesota. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that plays out for him down the line.
Ironically, Ryan Hartman and Vinny Hinostroza are best friends. So that's a fun little factoid. But they came up together through the Chicago system too. It's kind of funny how, where life takes you. But, again, I mentioned it earlier. Look, Hinostroza looked great on the line with Eriksson Ek and with Marcus Johansson. Like, there's a fit there. There's something they can do there. I think the Wild are dying for offense without Kirill Kaprizov. They are really struggling. I mean, they're not getting what they really need out of Matt Boldy. Marco Rossi stepped up a little bit this year, but Zuccarello hasn't been doing enough. Eriksson Ek is having a down year. They're just not getting the offense they really need. And for Hinostroza to come out with, put on a line with guys he's never played with. And again, they looked like it's hard to say they looked like the best line because the Rossi and Zuccarello and Boldy line looked so good. These past couple of games or so I thought. But again, Hinostroza just looks so comfortable out there. He's skating so well. He's seeing the ice really well. I don't see why they put Hartman back in the lineup if Hinostroza continues to play even at 3/4 of what he's doing already. So I don't know. It's a mess. I don't know where it's going to go, but it's really irritating that this continues to be a problem with Ryan Hartman.
Well, I have nothing further to add to this, so we can move on from this schmuck.
All right, let's see. So next on our list, Miro Heiskanen of the Dallas Stars is month to month. He had, I believe he had surgery to repair whatever was damaged, but he took that awkward hit from Mark Stone a couple weeks ago. Stone gets tripped into him and then, hits his knee, and kind of a rough play to watch, but Heiskanen down. So obviously he's going to miss the Four Nations Faceoff. It sounds like the hope is that he's back for the playoffs for Dallas. So, which, I mean, for them is probably good that, he's going to get a couple months to rest. And if he comes back, he'll be fresh as a daisy for the playoffs. I think that's the best case scenario for how heavily Dallas relies on him, especially in the postseason. I mean, we talked about it at length before on how they really put all the load on really 3 or 4 guys, and obviously Heiskanen is the leader of the pack there. So I think getting a couple months off for him will probably do him a lot of good.
Yeah, and I like you said, Dallas is going to heavily rely on him being, to quote you, fresh as a daisy for the playoffs. So as much as it sucks to see him miss Four Nations, you got to look at the bigger picture here. And it sucks that it was Mark Stone, because I love Mark Stone too. I mean, not a dirty player by any means anyway. Just kind of an unfortunate situation. Could have been a lot worse too. So be grateful for that. At least it's not a season-ending injury.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was going to be an ACL or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was going to say I think it looked way worse than it actually turned out to be. So again, just something to kind of keep an eye on. But fortunately for Dallas, they can hopefully get him back in time for the playoffs. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I don't think it's, I'm almost certain he'll be back for the playoffs. I mean, a lot of times these teams say month to month because they don't want, they're all, almost every team is overly vague with how they, describe injuries. Oh, we really don't know. Like you got to imagine these guys have some kind of realistic timeline. But again, the Stars did go out and they got Mikhail Granlund and Cody Ceci from the Sharks. That we actually missed that on our last show. And again, Granlund, I think will be a great fit there. He's a good center. Obviously, Honestly, this season with San Jose, 49 points, or, he was right now this season, he's 49 points in 56 games. And again, most of that coming with the Sharks, who have really struggled this year, despite how great Celebrini has been. But he's stood out there. He's an effective center. He's 32. I think he'll fit right in there. And again, I've talked about how the Stars are missing Joe Pavelski, and I don't think that this is even close to the same realm of player. But again, being deeper down the middle never can hurt. And so I think this trade will do the Stars some good. And again, they get Cody Ceci, who is by no means a superstar defender, but he's depth to fill in the gaps while you're without your best defenseman. We always talk about, stepping up as a team, playing by contributing by committee, that kind of thing. And I think that's kind of what this trade does for them. Again, they get deeper down the middle. They fill in the gap with Heiskanen gone. They're not overly burdening the other guys on the team. You just plug it in and let it ride until the playoffs or until Heiskanen's back. And quite frankly, I don't think anybody's under the illusion that Dallas will miss the playoffs without Heiskanen. They're a good enough team with a great goalie. So truly, I think they'll be much better off with him getting some rest now and letting this injury have the proper time to recover.
Yeah.
But I think as much as they're not going to hate not having him around the next couple months, and as much as Finland's really going to have trouble in this tournament now. They're down 3 of their defenders. What was it? Ristolainen's out too. And
he's out.
So it's not going to be great for Team Finland, and for Stars fans, it's obviously not going to be ideal not having your best defender on the ice for a couple months. But again, you're almost certainly going to make the playoffs. When this guy comes back, you'll be very thankful that he's well rested, and because they're going to need him. Look, with Dallas, if they're going to go on any deep run, they're leaning on this guy. They made it to the conference final last year. They made some deep runs with Heiskanen being the guy leading the charge on the back end, and so having him rested up, I think, is really going to be a difference maker here.
Right. And as far as the Four Nations goes, remember, as excited as we all are to watch this, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean anything. Like, it's just for fun. I mean, you get bragging, right? Your country gets bragging rights. But
I wouldn't say that too loud. A lot of these players are taking this very seriously.
No, and they should be. I'm not saying it shouldn't be taken seriously. What I'm saying is, yes, this is an NHL sanctioned tournament, but it's not. How do I word this?
I don't know. What you want to say.
It's not the Stanley Cup final, is what I'm saying. Is that which is the ultimate goal to see. I'm not saying this should be taken lightly, but this is absolutely a good filler. Yeah, it sucks that he's going to miss it, but it's not the end of the world. If I'm given the choice, I want him rested for the playoffs. I could care less about the Four Nations face-off at the end of the day.
Well, and I think Canucks it's dual purpose for Canucks fans too. I mean, it's with Hughes out. I mean, not only does he get rested up so he can come back healthy for their team, but he now is not playing for the American team, and most Canucks fans are Canadian. So they're kind of double dipping there. They get their best guy to, give the chance to get him rested up, and he doesn't have to play against their country in this tournament. So,
that's a win-win if you're a Vancouver fan.
Yeah, well, and again, win-win for Dallas too. Haiskanen's going to rest up so he's healthy for your team, and he's not going to play on Team Finland against you in the tournament. I mean, the United States first game is against Finland on Thursday night. So, speaking of the Four Nations face-up, I want to talk about. So we mentioned off the top of the show, no Russia, no Czechia. The IIHF just had a meeting. I think this was last week now. And one of the things they discussed was the ban on Russia and Belarus, and they decided to extend that out at least another year, if I understand correctly, meaning that Russia and Belarus cannot compete in any of the international tournaments. So they can't compete at the World Championships. They can't compete in World Juniors, anything like that. And I don't know if this meeting means that they're not able to compete at the Olympics. I don't know if that still falls with the the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, or not. But as it sits right now, Russia's still banned from international play. I know why they are. We're not going to start this discussion. I'm trying to figure out the right way to put this. Like, how can we find a resolve here? We're not going to get into the fact that it's irritating that they're not allowed, but what do we need to do to reach a resolution here so we can get these guys back in? Because you can make the argument that, well, they're not letting these guys in because of the Russia, all the stuff with Russia, and a lot of these guys support Russia. Well, we've made the point in the past that most of these guys probably are only supporting Putin and Russia because they have families back home, and if they don't, give full-fledged support, then obviously it could put some of their closest family and friends in danger. So rather than worry about that, can we just get back to the fact that hockey is a fucking game and let Russia into these events so we can have the best players and the true best on best tournaments that we could be having?
Right. That's my thing is, you can't call this the best of the best if the Russians aren't in it. That's my whole philosophy right there. Is some of the best players in this world are from Russia.
The best goal scorer in the history of this sport is Russian.
Yeah. So, and anybody who wants to argue that Ovi's not the best goal scorer, you can go argue that somewhere else, because I won't even entertain it.
Argue with a wall, exactly.
Yeah, but like I said, you can't call this the best of the best if Russia's not in it. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. So it's unfortunate. It's frustrating. I mean, I'm obviously for the players, but as fans, you want to see this, especially come Olympic time too. Like,
it's going to be really painful if these guys aren't there.
And it's so stupid. Like, we all know the reason they're not allowed. And the players support Russia. The players aren't the ones that have been causing all the stuff that's been going on over there. They're just here to play hockey. What are you going to do? Ban somebody for their quote unquote beliefs? That's just every time you don't like something, somebody believes you're just going to ban them. That's so stupid to me. So it just makes no sense.
Agree.
And that I'm on the same page as you is, how do we come to a resolution for this? What can we do to get it to where, because look, just because you let them play doesn't mean you're supporting what's going on over there. I think anybody with a brain is against what's going on over there.
Well, and so many people on the internet will, fill up their diapers at mock speed. As soon as somebody mentions Russia, they're like, well, they're all evil, bloodthirsty animals. I'm like, I really don't think that's true, even remotely. Again, it's hockey. It's a game. It's not, ironically, Ilya Bryzgalov famously said that, another Russian player, it's hockey. It's only a game. Why you have to be mad?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we could really take a piece from, take a piece out of that and just be like, yeah, these guys need to get back in and play this. It's ultimately a game. This isn't anything to do with politics or war or anything like that. It's a sport. It's a competition. Let these guys fucking play. And on the other side of this too, again, we mentioned Czechia not in the Four Nations Faceoff as well, defending IIHF world champions, and they're not in this tournament is nuts to me. Now, for what it's worth, when this tournament was announced, last year's world championships hadn't yet been played, so it's obviously not fair to be like, well, how come these guys aren't included? Well, when this tournament was announced, they hadn't yet won the world championship last year. So I get it. But again, Czechia is another nation that produces a lot of great NHL players. There's a lot of really talented players that could be at this tournament, and they aren't. And it's stupid.
Yeah,
but
it's
the Czechia side of it isn't so much an international issues dispute. It's more of a Gary Bettman is old and senile and doesn't know what he's doing issue.
Yeah, dude.
So
we're not gonna go down that route because I
was gonna say we're gonna talk ourselves in circles if we keep going. But you know what? Every time they talk about Russia being banned, we're gonna bring up the fact that they shouldn't be. So
that's correct.
We have to you have to stand your ground, and you have to pick your hills to die on, and this is ours.
And one thing I want to add that sort of relates to this is, I look at the analytics for people who listen and or watch our show. Primarily listen because that's where the majority of our audience is, and we have a pretty decent following from Russia. So the other thing is, I just want to say, if you're Russian and you watch or listen to our show, we're grateful for you and we feel for you as well. So just know that when you're here, when you're with us, you're appreciated. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And another thing I want to throw out real quick before I forget, there's a good buddy of mine. His name is Blaney, and because of him, we've picked up some new followers in the last week for our show. And I just wanted to give him a shout out and a thank you. If you're not following Blaney94 on TikTok, go check him out. He does logging for a living. He does some really cool lives and some really cool videos. Check him out. Great dude. Give him a follow. Tell him Andy and Brian sent you over from Fresh Ice. And Blaney, thanks for thanks for the support of the show and hooking us up with some followers. I really appreciate it. And I know Brian does as well.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on here and talk about the Blackhawks and specifically Connor Bedard and it has been talked about nonstop the last few weeks, the struggles Bedard has had with the Blackhawks, and it's the same arguments on both sides. It's while he's really not producing, and the other side is, well, look at the team he plays for. Well, it's time that we look at this a little bit deeper, because there is some truth to the fact that as bad as the Hawks are, a little bit is probably on the player here. It's no secret. First of all, it's no secret that Bedard's a talented hockey player. He's a great skater. He's got unbelievable hands, a great shot. You can't take that away. However, I don't know that since he's been in the NHL, anybody's told him that you do have to play defense at the NHL level.
Yeah.
He's a minus 22 on the Blackhawks. That is, and again, I know it's the Blackhawks and plus minus is a dumb stat, but it's worth mentioning that his minus 22 is the third worst on the team.
Yeah.
It's only better than Philip Kurashev, who is a minus 27, and Tyler Bertuzzi, who's a minus 28. Now, Kurashev's only played 38 games, but Bedard and Bertuzzi have both played 55 games, which I believe is every game Chicago's played this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. So they've, Bedard and Bertuzzi have both played every game. They play on the same line, minus 22 and minus 28. Look, I know somebody, or let me rephrase this. Ultimately, the entire team is a minus. There's 4 guys that have played for the Blackhawks this season that aren't a minus, and none of those guys have played more than 15 games. And only one player is a positive plus minus. Look, I know everybody's struggling, and I know the Blackhawks are bad, but ultimately Bedard is playing against every team's best players every night, and it's not like he's going out there with bums beside him. He usually, he goes out there with Nick Foligno or whatever, and then he's got Bertuzzi with him as well. Look, when they're playing together, it's not like they suck. These guys are capable hockey players, and for them to be this far in the negative, and again, I know their goaltending isn't great either, but a little bit of that's got to start being on the player. When you're playing 20 minutes a night like Bedard is and you're minus 22, you can't be like the worst on your team in the plus minus and just say, oh, well, the team I'm on is bad. I'm like, a little bit of that falls on you too. I think there's a certain point where it starts to become the responsibility of the player to not be a defensive liability, which is what Bedard is. And there's really no way around it.
I think you said that beautifully. And I would say more than a little bit of it falls on him.
He can't win a fucking face-off to save his life either.
That's exactly where I was going with that. So you took the words right out of my mouth. So the second thing I want to say, I want to take this all the way back to when he got drafted. I said it from the beginning, and I don't want to say I told you so, but the kid was overhyped so much. And again, I'm not saying he's not a talented hockey player. Like you said, he's got a great set of hands. He skates so well. He is a good hockey player. Obviously, he's in the National Hockey League. It doesn't get better than that. But they overhyped the shit out of him. And yeah, you can sit here and argue all day how bad the Hawks are. That's no secret. We all know how terrible Chicago is. But you look at some of the greatest players to play this game. Look at Connor McDavid when he came into the league. Who the hell was Edmonton? Terrible. And Connor McDavid still performed. And I'm not comparing them to each other directly. I'm just saying when you're a player that's as hyped up as Connor Bedard is, you have to produce, and you absolutely cannot. 1, you have to win faceoffs, and 2, you have to back check. That's the biggest thing. He is a defensive liability. And I understand he's young. I don't want to take that away. I know it's his second year in the league. I got it. But still, you play at the highest level of hockey possible. You should know better than that. So
well, and a lot of people are making this comparison too. Now, Celebrini, if you pull up his numbers of the Sharks, is a minus 20. Now the Sharks are significantly a worse hockey team than the Blackhawks.
But Celebrini's producing.
Well, for what it's worth, Bedard actually has more points this season than Celebrini. But 2 things. First of all, Celebrini, this is his first year in the league. The other thing is the Sharks are significantly worse. They have 0 talent in net. And I'm not talking about Askarov, but although some of the games when he first came up to the NHL were bad, but every game Georgiev is in the net there is a fucking dumpster fire. They don't have any, they can't play defense. The team is a mess from top to bottom. They're just fun to watch. But Celebrini, the difference is first of all, he's just as talented as Bedard offensively. He's got a great shot, great skater, he's great hands, great, outstanding vision. The one thing he does a lot better than Bedard is he's like a bloodthirsty hound when it comes to the puck. When he doesn't have it, he goes and gets it. But where Bedard will wait for his line mates to forecheck and get him the puck, Celebrini will go get the puck himself and then make the play happen still. He's a significantly better player. There's really no two ways about it. I know the numbers aren't quite there, but the Sharks are just that bad of a team overall where it's kind of been a struggle. Look, the bottom line is this needs to get better. And I know some of it is coaching too. I don't think the Blackhawks are that well coached. And I know it's kind of been a mess this year with the firing, and now you have an interim coach. So I'm sure some of Bedard's struggles can be coached. But the biggest concern, if I'm a fan of him or a fan of the Blackhawks, is the fact that he can't win faceoffs to save his life. Celebrini can win faceoffs, if nothing else. I take a second to pull up their face-off percentages, but Bedard's is really bad, and so we'll get to that in just a second. I have to pull it up on NHL.com because ESPN.com does not have good enough stat tracking for the NHL. But so many of the struggles Bedard has are just, it just seems like they're effort issues. Now the face-offs is one thing that, like I said, that's a point of concern, but the lack of effort on defense and the lack of forechecking, it is really tough to watch when you're this talented. I mean, look at the best players in this league, like Crosby, McKinnon, McDavid. When those guys, and I just mentioned this with Celebrini, those are guys that when they don't have the puck, they're figuring out what they can do to get it back. Crosby is probably the best example of this, and I think McKinnon is too. They will just hunt down the puck wherever it is. They'll get it. They'll knock anybody off of it to make a play. And they're just really good at getting the puck back. And I think that's where Bedard struggles the most. And for a guy that can't, look, if you can't win faceoffs, it is what it is. But if you're not going to be winning the faceoffs, you need to be the first guy on that puck, like chasing it down right away. And I just don't think the effort level's there from him. Maybe this is just a really bad sewer take on Connor Bedard, but it's just irritating. And I think it's because, like you mentioned, how hyped he was when he came into the league. He just has, at least this season, I feel like he's really under-delivered.
You know, one thing that you said earlier too, that I just kind of want to revert back to, it was when I said, Celebrini's producing and you're like, well, Bedard has more points than him. That's all fine and dandy, but there's so much more to play in hockey than just scoring. And that's the thing. There's so many more aspects to the game where you even mentioned earlier, Macklin Celebrini is so much more aggressive.
By the way, Celebrini's played 10 less games than Bedard and has 9 less points. So there's actually the gap actually isn't that big now that I see this close up. I forgot he had that injury on opening night.
Yes. And like you said, the Sharks are borderline poverty franchise. And I don't want anybody that we have that listens to the show that's a Sharks fan. I don't want you to take that personally because
it's not.
No, it's not. I mean, you're in a rut right now, man. It just is what it is. Every team goes through them eventually. It just happens to be their time. But I have nothing against the Sharks. I love them. I love the fans. So don't take that personally.
Here you go. I pulled the numbers up. Connor Bedard this season in the faceoff dot 38.9%. Last season 35.3%. Celebrini 49%.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's significant difference. Celebrini's also shooting at a higher percentage this year too.
Yeah.
Look, I should just take a quick, detour here and say I'm not dunking on the Sharks or making fun of them. It's just the reality of the situation. I think most Sharks fans would level with me and say, look, it's been a tire fire. It's been a fun tire fire because Smith and Celebrini, you can see the path to success. You can see where this will eventually take them somewhere, and when they can get Askarov to be good every game and they can fire Georgiev into the Pacific Ocean and start to round out the defense core. You can see the path to success there. I don't see any of that with Chicago. The only bright spot on the team, again, 38% in the faceoff circle, and he's the second worst plus minus on his team. I think there is a valley of a difference between these two players, and I know the Sharks, again, the standings might confuse you and say otherwise, but you have to look at this with a broader perspective and just realize where these teams are at. They're both kind of in the same spot in that they're that they tore it all the way down. They got their superstar, so to speak, and now they're building it back up. And I know the results aren't there for the Sharks, but the Sharks didn't go out in free agency and bring in guys. The Hawks went out and they got, they bring in Nick Foligno, they bring in Taylor Hall, they bring Teravainen back, they bring in Bertuzzi. Like they went out and they got guys. And yes, they're ahead of San Jose in the standings, but they're not that much further ahead. Where San Jose kept it more in-house. They just went with more of their own guys, added in depth where they could. But the Sharks are already starting to unload guys. They send out Granlund, they send out Cody Ceci. Like they're not now, although this summer with the cap going up, I think they're going to go big game hunting. But they didn't do that this offseason, and that's why they're still so much lower in the standings. So, again, you need to have that broader perspective and realize that, yes, the Sharks are a worse team, but their approach to success going forward is vastly different from Chicago's. And in the next 3 years, I think San Jose is going to rocket up the standings each season, and I would not be surprised to see Chicago still spinning their tires down in the bottom 8 teams of the league or whatever, wherever the hell they're at.
Yeah, Man, you said that beautifully. My whole thing with Chicago is, like, the first thing I'll say is San Jose, as terrible as they are, they're still fun to watch. I mean, and I think a lot just because Macklin Celebrini is fun to watch. But I'll tell you this. Most of the stuff that we see, especially for us to talk about on this show, we see from highlights because we can't sit down and watch every single hockey game. But I have watched 4, maybe 5 San Jose Sharks games this year. I've watched 0 Blackhawk games. So
look, I'll say this too. I don't need to watch a Sharks game to know that 49% in the faceoff dot is better than 38%.
110%.
I don't need to watch the game to know that 38% in the faceoff circle is what a winger should be doing in the faceoff circle, not a center.
You're correct.
Bottom line.
With that being said, with Chicago, they haven't been fucking relevant since 2015, and
they haven't won a playoff series since.
That's what I'm saying. And everybody can bitch at me and say, well, you're a Bruins fan. What have the Bruins done? Essentially, you're right. Almost nothing. Yeah, we went to the final in 2019. Hell, and even 2013, and they lost both of those. Fine, but they made it there. That's the thing. So they went from what I would consider to be a dynasty organization, winning 3 championships in 6 years, which is a great fucking run, to almost immediately falling off the wagon. Yeah. So
those back-to-back first-round losses to the Blues and Predators derailed the entire organization.
The Predators one is what made it come crashing down.
The loss to the Blues was tough, but that was a Blues team that was really hot and on the rise. That sweep to the Preds when when the Hawks were the number 1 seed and the Preds were the 8 seed, that was tough. Now, granted, the Preds went to the final that year, but still, that they've not been the same since those 2 crushing losses. And they did technically win a round, so to speak, when they won the play-in tournament for the COVID bubble, but that also doesn't count as a Stanley Cup playoff game. So therefore, they have not won a playoff series, because then after they beat Edmonton, they lost to Vegas, I think it was that year.
That's correct. So, I mean, and this is another subject that you and I could sit here and speak passionately about for hours. But digressing back to the point, Connor Bedard needs to step it up.
He does. And I didn't want this to just be a slam piece on him, but the reality is that, look, if you're this hyped, you need to step the fuck up. That's what it more needs to be, as a motivation. Like, dude, get your ass in gear. Obviously, the offensive talent's there. Double down on defense. If faceoffs aren't your thing, move to the wing. Like, and that's an organizational move. Obviously, that's not something you can just be like, I'm going to play the wing now.
Yeah,
that's something the team has to do, and that's about how they deploy him on the ice. But for him, again, he's got to be harder on pucks. He's got to back check. I mean, it's just not acceptable at him. And Bertuzzi, shame on Bertuzzi, a guy as rough-nosed as he is out there getting his net filled in behind him. That's unacceptable. But again, Bertuzzi, not to diss Bertuzzi, but he's not a superstar player. But again, a guy who's been around as long as he has, and who played in the AHL, where there's a lot more defense first kind of mindset on a lot of teams. Like, he should know better. I mean, that's just not acceptable. But for Bedard going forward, the path to success is, you already have the offensive talent. You need to round out your defensive game, so when you're in your own zone, you're not on your ass with the puck behind you in the net.
Yeah, I Again, I don't want to sit here and beat a dead horse the whole episode. I think we're at a point where everybody knows what needs to happen, including Bedard. So it's just a matter of what steps does he take to make it happen if he does. So,
Yeah.
But I don't want to sit here and beat this dead horse all night. So I think we should move on. However, before we do that, we're going to step aside real quick to bring you a word from our friends over at XenoPucks.
We'll be right back.
It's hockey season, and you're looking to work on your stick handling or maybe even your shot, but ice time just isn't an option for you right now. Luckily, our buddies over at XenoPucks have got you covered. They've developed an elite off-ice practice puck that, in addition to looking like the real thing, is the same size and weight as a regulation hockey puck to give you that authentic feel on the end of your stick. It works better than other off-ice practice pucks on almost any surface, whether you use it on hardwood, carpet, concrete, or even asphalt. XenoPucks glide like a real puck on ice. So if you're looking to improve your game without setting foot on the ice, head over to www.xenopucks.com and get yourself a puck. Check out their merch selection and be sure to follow them on Instagram at XenoPucks.
All right, and we're back again. Thanks as always to XenoPucks for sponsoring our show. Before we get to our Four Nations picks and our Blue Jackets segment, I want to talk about the Vegas Golden Knights. We have, specifically me, but we've pumped their tires on this show plenty of times. And boy, has the last couple of weeks just been weird as hell for them. They went through a 10-game stretch not too long ago where they won 2 out of 10. And then going into the break here, they just won 2 games. They beat the Devils on, I think that was Thursday night. This past Thursday night, and then the Bruins, they beat them on Saturday. But prior to that, a loss to both New York teams, a loss to Columbus, a loss to the Stars, 2 losses to the Stars, and then a loss and a win against St. Louis, a win against the Florida Panthers, but a loss to Chicago and a loss to Nashville, plus a loss to the Hurricanes. Going back further, a victory over Minnesota, then a loss to both New York teams again. I don't know what to make of this team now. Look, first of all, I'll lead this, just so we're not tabloidy about it. I'll lead this by saying I think Vegas will be fine in the long haul, and that they're still one of the best teams in the league. And they, especially come playoff time, they are an absolute unit. And I would not be surprised to see them make a deep run. But it is weird to me when a team of this caliber has stretches where they lose really rough games against teams that aren't great. Like, again, now some of the teams they lost to, like losing to Dallas twice, no real shame in that. Dallas is a great team. But losing to the Rangers, who I know are on the rise, same with the Islanders, but teams that you're capable of beating, it's just really weird to me. The way they were losing these games, the loss to Chicago is unacceptable. The loss to the Predators is unacceptable. Loss to the Hurricanes, again, that's a pretty good team. But I don't know. It's so weird. A team this good should not be having stretches like this. I mean, the best teams in the league have stretches where sometimes you lose 6 out of 10 or, 5 out of 10, and it just is what it is. Although 500 hockey is at least considered acceptable, but sometimes you lose a couple in a row or whatever, but losing 8 out of 10 for a team that's this good is just weird. I really don't know what to make of Vegas going forward. And, it's not really because of injuries. I mean, they get Barbashev's been like a non-factor for this team this year, which is crazy because when I think of Vegas, I think of him, Eichel, and Stone lighting it up. That top line is normally great, but I mean, Dorofeyev stepped up a little bit for them, but by the way, Jack Eichel 50 assists. What an absolute machine. I can't wait to watch him on Team USA. But I don't know what to make of Vegas. And these games they just won against the Bruins and against the Devils were, I would say, pretty convincing wins, like wins you walk away from feeling good, like, okay, we're going in the right direction. But what the fuck were the 3.5 weeks preceding that? Like, what was that?
And I try not to overreact when it comes to them because, I mean, since they're day one and they came into this league elite and they've just stayed there ever since the team's inception. So go ahead. I didn't.
And it could just be me overreacting. It's weird. I mean, like, let's look at some really good teams in the league right now. Like Winnipeg, they had a great start to the year. They kind of fell off a little bit. Now they go into the break winning 8 in a row, which is crazy. But they never really had, even at their worst stretch, their only quote unquote bad stretch this season, they were still playing around 500 hockey. It just wasn't the 18-1 start or whatever that they had.
Yeah.
But again, they were playing their worst hockey and it was 500 and it wasn't pretty, but they were getting by. And Dallas too. Dallas kind of had a slow start to the season. Now they've really picked it up, but they never had stretches where they were losing 8-10 or 7-10 or anything. They were just playing 500 hockey and just chipping away at it. Colorado is not a good example because their woes were due to their goaltending. But you look at other teams, the Oilers had a really bad start to the year, but I still don't think they went on a stretch like that where they've lost 8 out of 10. The Oilers, by the way, first in the Pacific Division right now. So LA right now has only won 4 of their last 10, but again, that's it's not great, but they're still in the mix here, and I mean they're third.
They're a spottier team though, like generally speaking. They are, but my point exactly, they're not as deep as Vegas, and even they haven't had stretches where they're losing 8 of 10, and I don't know if that's something to be concerned about or if this is just way overreacting. It just is weird. I really just don't know what to make of it because teams this good usually don't have runs like this. Well, I definitely don't think you're overreacting because I think if you're a fan of any team that's notoriously good and you have a stretch like this, I think it's going to raise eyebrows for anybody. Do I think it's anything to worry about long term, though? Not at all. Vegas is one of the best teams in the league. There's no doubt about it. So every team's allowed to have a bad stretch. And I understand what you're saying. Losing 8 out of your last 10 is a tough look. I get it. But I still don't think this is any cause for anybody to panic. I still think this is a team that's very dangerous. Sometimes you just go through rough stretches no matter how good your team is. So I don't know. I mean, and maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe this is, alarms are starting to sound and I'm just not picking up on them. But I really don't think this is a cause for concern right now.
By the way, I was looking at the Pacific Division standings. Anaheim's won 6 of their last 10. They've won 3 in a row. I just want to quick aside. We're not going to go at length about this. I just know that we have some Ducks fans that listen to this show. And I just want to say I am so sorry Greg Cohn is the head coach of your team because he's a fucking idiot. So let's move on. I just wanted to get that in there because I know we have a couple Ducks fans that listen to our show, and I know they're hurting because their coach is an idiot, and he is really, really putting a damper on a team that could be significantly better than they are right now, especially with how good Lucas Dostal is.
I'm also sorry if you're a Ducks fan that Jacob Trouba scored the overtime loser for you. Did you see that?
I didn't see it. I saw it was either ESPN or YouTube. I saw a clip. I didn't open up the video, but I don't want to kick them while they're down either.
Yeah, that was. I won't bring it back up. I'll tell it to you off screen or off the show, but that was rough to watch, man.
Yeah, I'll have to see it now.
Yeah.
How about who was it on? The Minnesota and New York Islanders game the other night. I hate Tony DeAngelo, and so I had great satisfaction watching him put in 2 goals into his own net against the Wild the other night. That was fun.
Yeah,
that was just like chef's kiss, amazing. That was fun.
I should point out that Trouba did not put the puck in his own net. I'll just say what happened. He banks it off the wall behind the net, and it pops up, goes over the net, and lands right in front of the line, and the guy in their team just popped it in.
Oh, yeah. See, Tony DeAngelo was standing in front of his own goalie and practically one-timed the puck into his own net. It was hilarious.
Oh, my God, dude.
So, yeah, that was great. But we're going to move on here because we're grown up, so we're not going to pick on people while they're down.
Correct.
Even though we just
shit on the Hawks for
exactly. Well, part of me enjoyed that a little bit, but part of me felt like it was necessary too. You can't let them get away with being that awful. All right, so we're going to go out of order for this. Normally I would say let's save the Blue Jackets segment for the end of the show, but I think I want to end the show with Four Nations if you're on board with that. So
100%, man.
Let's get to our Blue Jackets segment. For those of you who don't care, you can feel free to skip ahead until you find our Four Nations conversation. But for the Jackets, we pumped their tires when we had Ben on the show, and now they're 4-5-1 in their last 10. They go into the break losing 4 in a row, and I know they lost Marchenko with the injury in Dallas when he break his jaw or whatever, so he's going to be out for a little bit. But boy, this is not the way this team wanted to head into the break. With how much of a roll they were on, I think they're actually sitting outside the playoffs now as we enter this break. Yes, they're 1 point behind Detroit.
Well, what really concerns me too is you and I are getting ready to go to the outdoor game at the Shoe in a couple weeks where they're playing Detroit, who's on an absolute bender right now, and now the Columbus is starting to go downhill, and I'm just like, oh shit. Well, at least I got a cool jersey out of it. So
well, and you never know. Again, they could come out and play the best game ever, but
oh yeah.
I just think the injury to Marchenko, I think that was one of those ones where it just sucks the energy out of the locker room and it leaves the guys railing. I actually think this happening right before the break might not the losing streak, but I think just with everything that's going on with the team, I think having the break right now is going to be good for them. I think these guys are almost every guy on this team, except for Zach Werenski, is going to get a chance to take a couple weeks off, hit the reset button, get their mind fresh, and just focus on the month and a half that will finish the season following the Four Nations break here. It's not been pretty. I get it. But like I said, these guys are going to have time to just hit the reset button, come back at it, full effort, well rested. And I get that the whole league essentially will be well rested, but I think a team that was struggling like this going into the break that just lost its best offensive producer, well, its best offensive forward. Yeah. I know it's a tough blow, but I think. Are you there?
I'm here now. I don't know. It was all real spotty. I don't know if it was my end or you.
I have no idea.
Well, I guess we'll find out when when I go to publish the show.
Well, so just in case that did cut us off, I just wanted to reiterate that having this break now is just good. It's what the team needs. It's been a rough stretch. You lose your best forward, your best producing forward. Sometimes you just need a chance to get your mind right and be like, look, we still got to play these games. Obviously, it sucks we're without Marchenko, but I think they're going to come back guns blazing.
Oh, I was going to keep it simple to fix that and just say I either agree or disagree with what you did or did not say, and then just move on.
Yeah.
And then everything's fixed. But I do agree with you. I do feel bad for Columbus, though. I mean, this team has been through so much, especially the last year. I mean, you talk about between getting a new GM, a new head coach, the obvious Johnny Gaudreau. They use that as motivation. They start looking really good. Then this happens, and Marchenko is just such a key part of this organization. He's such a great player on the ice. He's a huge part of that locker room camaraderie too. Everybody loves him. It's a tough blow. And yeah, for people wondering, I don't know if we ever explained this either. The reason we're doing a Blue Jackets segment on this show is because we are an Ohio-based podcast. That is where we reside. Granted, our first team is not the Columbus Blue Jackets. We do live here, therefore we do support them, and we have actually a pretty good following in Ohio, obviously full of Blue Jackets fans. So instead of just doing a Blue Jackets podcast, we just throw the segment in here. But I digress.
I do want to really quick give a shout out to Kent Johnson, who's been really, really, really good lately. He's just every game it seems like he's starting to get better. I don't know what changed for him this year, but that kid is just
like
nuts.
A switch, dude.
Yeah, he's crazy, and I'm enjoying every second of it. So I don't know. I've been vocal too about how good I think Fantilli is and how good he's going to continue to be. I think they really as a team had a tough time processing not having Marchenko around. I think the one that stings the most, not only the loss to Dallas, but they won that game, didn't they?
To Dallas?
No, they lost that game 5-3. That started the losing streak. So I was thinking of the game before that they beat Utah. I don't know why I was thinking that was okay. Anyways, but yeah, since then, ironically, they lost to Utah right after that too. But so this losing streak, a 5-3 loss to Dallas, a 3-2 loss to the Sabres, woof, a 3-2 loss to Utah, woof.
Yeah,
the one that hurts the most is letting it get away against the Rangers the other night. That one was bad. You're at home. It's your last game before the break. You have a lead, you blow it. And then now you're tied late in the third period. You surrender the winning goal with, I think it was like a minute 15 or something, or a minute 20 or whatever it was. It was close to a minute and a half.
Right.
And you surrender the game winning goal. That sucks. And that's why I think these guys just they tumbled into the finish line for the break here. And I think now they'll have the chance to hit the reset button and go at this again with a, fresh mindset, and not be like, oh, well, God, we're reeling. We have a 4-game losing streak. They'll be like, no, I just had 2 weeks to recover and get all the bumps and bruises healed up, and now I'm ready to go out there and kick some ass.
Yeah, do you hear that?
I did not hear that.
Oh, maybe it was just in my end.
Okay, must have been on your end. I didn't hear anything.
It was like a loud, like high pitch. I don't know.
I would say this isn't making good radio. Let's move on.
Fuck, dude, I forgot what I was gonna say. What'd you say? What was the last thing you said?
I just said that they're gonna come out of the gate guns blazing, because they'll be as healed up as they can be, and instead of thinking about how they had 4 straight losses, they'll be like, all right, I'm feeling better. Let's get it right back at this.
Right. I do agree. And I'm hoping that's the case. I'm kind of hoping, and not so much just with them, but with everybody, like, use this time, especially if you're not playing in the Four Nations, use this time off.
Live in an ice bath.
I was going to, maybe don't take it that far, but get your mind and your body right in this time off. Use it appropriately. I mean, if you use this time off just to absolutely fuck around, you're not going to come out any better. So, but I think as far as Columbus is concerned, you're going into this break on a rough skid. Figure out where your errors are. Figure out what you need to do to fix them, how you resolve this, and come out guns a-blazing when we come out of the other side of this thing.
All right. Well, this thing we've been talking about is the Four Nations Faceoff. It starts Wednesday night, Canada versus Sweden in Montreal, I believe. Or no, they're in Boston, aren't they? I don't know. I forgot. Look. The U.S. and Finland game will be in Montreal. The Canada and Sweden game, I believe, is in Boston. So this is going to be an exciting tournament. Again, first time we've had NHLers at an international tournament since the World Cup in 2016. It's been a long time. And the last time this we had international tournament, you had just moved away from home to go live in Florida, and I was still in college. So it's been a little while.
Dude, holy shit, it has been that long.
Yeah, it's been a little while. You had, I think, just had started dating your now wife, and I was a year plus away from even starting to talk to my now wife. So life comes at you quick. Shit. So a lifetime worth of events has happened in the 8 years are now 9 years we've been without international play with NHL players. So I'm excited as hell for this. I know, obviously, a couple of key injuries. Obviously, Quinn Hughes for the USA is a killer. Finland losing 3 defenders is a nightmare for a team that was probably, not to dunk on them, but probably the least likely team to win this thing. Now to be down 3 of your best defenders, including your very best one in Haskin. I think that's just daggers, but I'm excited for this, man. Obviously, us and our wives are going to get together. We're going to watch it, what I would assume is probably almost all of these games. Ironically, we won't be able to watch the championship game together because I will not be in town, but I'll be watching it from a couple hours away. But like, it's exciting. I mean, cheering for your own country is fun. I mean, perfect example, I'm wearing my Wild hat. You have your Bruins and your jackets and your Panthers jerseys behind you. And, we all have our teams we cheer for and that we love, and we're diehard fans, but something about watching players play for your own country, there's just another level of excitement that I can't equate it to with any other sport. I don't know what it is about watching USA hockey play that's just so much more exciting than anything in any other sport.
It just really, truly feels like an international battle. I think that's just really what it comes down to.
The Olympics is going to be crazy next year. I can't wait.
Dude.
I feel like I want to take 2 weeks of vacation
and go
next year.
Yeah, dude.
No, not even go there. Just sit on my couch and watch all the games.
Oh, screw that. I want to go. Let's roll.
Well, it's in Milan, Italy. So there you go.
I'm already going to Italy this summer, so
I'll go next winter too.
Hey man, I make good money, but I don't make fuck you money. So
So yeah, this is an exciting time for hockey fans. I think everybody's a little jittery. Ironically, we did the show today. I didn't even look up at the line rushes. We're in practice to see what USA's lines are going to look like. But this is just really cool. I mean, again, it's been nearly a decade since we got to enjoy anything like this. And I mean, since then, obviously, as Americans, we saw the women's team win the gold medal at the Olympics in 2018. And obviously the U.S. has won a couple World Junior Championships. So, I mean, for us as U.S. hockey fans, we've gotten to see some things. But I think just as hockey fans, we're all excited to see NHL players on the biggest stages. It's going to be exciting. And I can't wait.
Yeah, international hockey is some of the best hockey you could possibly ever watch. And that's a fact. That's not something that's up for debate. I can't believe it's been almost 9 years now since we've had
it was August. I want to say it was August of 2016 was when that World Cup. It was either August or September of 2016.
It was 2016 because remember
I know it was 2016. I just don't remember what month
jersey.
It was. Okay. Yeah. I just don't remember what month it was, but yeah, it's essentially it's been. This year would be 9 years, so it's been 8.5 years. So it's been a long time. It's very much overdue, and I could run through a wall. I'm so excited. I mean, my wife and I are probably going to watch the Canada-Sweden game on Wednesday night, even though we don't have a dog in the fight. Like, I just can't wait to do this. But Thursday night, U.S. versus Finland, it's going to be great. And with that in mind, why don't we make our predictions for this tournament as we get ready to wrap the show?
Sounds fucking good to me.
So who do you like? Who do you not like going into this? I mean, what are your thoughts on all of this?
I mean, in my mind, if you're just looking at the teams on paper, it should just be a 7-game series between USA and Canada, if I'm being 100% honest. And I really don't think there's too many people out there that disagree. Granted, anything can happen, but on paper, if I'm just looking at from that point of view, this is USA Canada's tournament all day. So.
Yeah, I think you're right. It just, well, finish your thought and then I'll. Yeah,
I was gonna say, and I'm not shitting on Sweden or Finland by any stretch because there's some really good talent all throughout this tournament. It's just that the USA and Canada are so stacked. I don't know if I'm not gonna sit here and waste the time to find it, but did you see the power play line for Canada?
I didn't see it, but I envision it's McKinnon, McCarr, McDavid, Crosby, and Marchand or something.
Reinhardt.
God, a guy that can score 50 or 60 goals.
Yeah, I'm saying it's just absolutely disgusting. Like, and I mean, that's the number one thing I'm looking forward to about it. You get to see the best names in the sport play, and that's why I love international play so much. But anyway,
the last time we had the international tournament, we had the Team North America in the World Cup, and that was all the under 23 guys. So it was like McKinnon, McDavid, and Matthews.
Yeah,
Matthews and McDavid connected for that breakaway goal. That was pretty sick.
Yeah, man. I don't think we need to sit here and pick a winner from each series. I want to know, who do you think takes it all?
Well, I want to start from the bottom, work my way up. I mentioned, especially with the injuries, it's really hard to envision a path for Finland to even win a game in this. Now, watch them come out and blow the doors off the USA on Thursday night. I think that would be hilarious. But it's hard for me to see a path for them to even have a chance in any of these games, much less the whole tournament. So I'm not going to say them. Sweden is probably my dark horse in this. The talent level is there. If they can just get a couple good bounces, I think they can be just as dangerous as either U.S. or Canada. But I do think this is the U.S. and Canada's. This is really the U.S. and Canada showdown. As good as Canada is, and that lethal power play that they can put on the ice, and the talented group of forwards, and an incredibly deep defensive core, it's so impressive. And now the U.S. is without Quinn Hughes. Canada is really going to hurt in goaltending department. Aiden Hill's a good goalie. He's probably, I would assume, the starter there. I don't think it's going to be Binnington, and I don't think it's going to be Montembeault. I really don't imagine him even playing 1 second in any of the games. And while Canada can mostly shut things down because of how good their defense group is and how solid and how good at playing a two-way game their forwards are, the U.S. is just so much deeper in net. Obviously, the forwards are maybe one step behind Canada's, and the defense without Quinn Hughes does leave a little to be desired. But Connor Hellebuyck and Jake Ottinger, it's going to be Hellebuyck, but either or, I would take either of those guys defending the net for the USA, and Swayman too if it came down to it. I know he hasn't had a great season, but with an elite defense group in front of him, I think he'd be okay. But Connor Hellebuyck's been outstanding with the Jets defense in front of him, and the Jets defense isn't bad. It's a very solid unit, but he's going to have the best American players other than Quinn Hughes defending the net in front of him. I don't see how this guy's going to have any trouble winning all 3 games the U.S. plays before the championship. Right. I just, and it's hard as an American to not be biased. I just can't see the U.S. losing any of these games or this tournament. I think the U.S. is by a mile the favorite, and they're my pick to take this whole thing.
I mean, we're on the same. I think everybody except Canada is going to agree with us.
I think the easy answer is Canada. The goaltending is just bad, though. It's just not.
Yeah. Good. Well, that's the thing. I mean, offensively, forget it, man. That Canada is just as stacked as Team USA, honestly, if not more. But USA's got the better goaltending, and I honestly think that's what it's ultimately going to come down to. And like you said, you don't want to sound biased. I don't give a shit. I'll be biased all day. USA all the way.
It's worth mentioning Canada's the only team that has goalies who have won Stanley Cups. So I did kind of, counteract my own point, but let's not pretend, first of all, that Jordan Binnington is still a good goalie, first of all. No. And let's not pretend that Adin Hill didn't have the run of his life the year Vegas won the Cup.
That's correct. So we'll see how that goes, but I don't see any scenario where the USA doesn't come out on top. So
only time will tell. Again, U.S. first game is against Finland on Thursday night. That's at 8 Eastern. Canada opens things up against Sweden on Wednesday night. It should be a really exciting contest to watch. Of course, the one I think everybody's looking forward to is the U.S. versus Canada on Saturday night. We'll be watching that one together. That is going to be a hockey religious experience. It's going to be just outstanding, and I can't wait. The next time we talk to you guys, we'll have seen the results of all of these games that we're talking about. So I can't wait to talk about it. I can't wait to watch these games, and I think we'll wrap it there. Everybody enjoy this tournament. Enjoy the quick breather we're going to get from the NHL season, and let's watch some amazing hockey. We'll see you next Sunday.